Computer, define balance.
Balance. Noun. An even distribution of weight enabling someone or something to remain upright and steady.
Okay. Now computer, define balance in the Force.
Balance in the Force.
Whereas on the other hand, the true Jedi uses the light side of the Force. They simply maintain.
Alright, looks like we got some clearing up to do there. Welcome to Cuenin's Cove, I'm Cuenin, and today I'll be looking at Star Wars canon, legends, lore, history, writing, the franchise, to determine the final answer to the question, what does bringing balance to the Force actually mean? It's my belief that bringing balance to the Force is not an external struggle of trying to bring balance to the Force of the entire universe, but an internal struggle of trying to bring balance within yourself.
The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish. And you want to keep them in balance.
What the Almighty George describes here is a balance between selfishness and selflessness, both representations of the dark and the light side of the Force. These two natures are internal struggles that all human beings deal with on an individual basis. So in a sense, balancing the Force, or balancing these two human traits, can be interpreted as an internal balance varying from person to person. And this in the end is where the Jedi of the Old Republic misinterpreted. The Jedi were just too focused on bringing balance to the entire galaxy, something that isn't possible when you haven't even brought balance to yourself. They even take children and adopt them into their order and force them to believe what they believe, something that is mirrored by the First Order of all things later on in the series. When in reality, and I'm gonna keep saying this, the only way to bring balance to the Force is to bring balance within yourself, to find that balance between being selfish and selfless. A good example of this is all of Star Wars. In Return of the Jedi, Luke allowed himself to succumb to selfishness, lashing out at Darth Vader because he doesn't want his friends and his sister to be taken away from him. And that's not a bad thing, that just shows that he cares about his friends, but it is a selfish thought. He overcomes this by not killing his father during this duel. And through this selfless act of not killing his father also returns to the light side, not bringing balance to the entire galaxy, but bringing balance to himself and his dad. Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars originally believes that the Separatists are everything wrong with the galaxy and they just need to take care of that. And over time she learns that things aren't so one-sided, and the only realistic way she could ever bring balance to the Force is just bring balance to herself. And yeah, you could say that her white lightsabers in Rebels represent that. She learns not to follow the will of the Council and the Republic, but to follow the will of the Force, and to trust her instincts. The conclusion Rey comes to in The Rise of Skywalker is that she can't solve all her problems through aggression. If she were to strike down the Emperor out of anger and aggression, like the Emperor wanted, Palpatine would have only went on to live inside of Rey, as he described in the movie. But by destroying him out of selflessness, for the sake of others, this great evil in the galaxy finally perished for good. Hopefully, this time.
What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance, and then you get really selfish and you forget about everybody, and you ultimately lead yourself, because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. Mm-hmm. And when you want stuff and you get stuff, then you are afraid somebody's going to take it away from you.
The ultimate example of this is Anakin Skywalker. His relationship with Padme isn't one out of pure love and selflessness, it's out of fear. A quote from the Clone Wars TV series:
The only love I feel in my heart is haunted by what would happen should I let go.
Then it is not love. It is a prison.
True love is selfless. It's a genuine and unconditional care and support for another human being, without personal gain. Anakin loves Padme because he really doesn't know what would happen if he let go of her, and that's out of fear. While he was training with Obi-Wan, he knew that his mother was still out there, but once he lost his mother, he had Padme to sort of fill in that role, so he really hasn't lived without it. This is demonstrated in Attack of the Clones. Anakin obviously has feelings for Padme, but his fear of losing his mother or losing Padme in Revenge of the Sith just outranks any other feeling he has. And throughout the Clone Wars, Anakin is way too possessive over Padme.
The Chancellor has asked me to do this, Anakin.
But I'm asking you to say no. As your husband, I demand that you tell the Chancellor you are stepping down.
Instead of loving and supporting her unconditionally, he wishes to control every little bit of his life. And this leads to his downfall in Revenge of the Sith.
Obviously, the Sith are always unhappy because they never get enough of anything they want. Mostly their selfishness centers around power and control. And the struggle is always to be able to let go of all that stuff. You're allowed to love people, but you're not allowed to possess them.
And when I kind of think about it, in that sense, this whole time Anakin has been showing characteristics of a Sith. Just no one realized it. The Jedi had no idea, whether it be because the Force was clouded by the dark side, or it's because they hadn't dealt with a Sith Lord in over 1,000 years and they've kind of lost the true idea of what a Sith Lord is. They've lost the core idea of the thing that they're trying to get rid of. That's just shows how dogmatic the Jedi are.
Once you become afraid that somebody's going to take it away from you, or you're going to lose it, then you start to become angry, especially if you're losing it. And that anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering, mostly on the part of the person who's selfish, because you spend all your time being afraid of losing everything you've got instead of actually living.
Luckily, Anakin and Padme had the Clone Wars to distract them from their relationship problems, for a while.
I think it's best if we don't see each other anymore.
The takeaway from that is that Anakin is a prime example of imbalance. The prequels were meant to show his development there, and then the original trilogy represents his redemption. The fact that Anakin couldn't go to Obi-Wan or Yoda to talk about his relationship problems was the ultimate defeat, because if he were able to go talk to his friends, that would have helped him out a lot more than just internalizing the fear. Now, this is all not to say that balancing the Force doesn't mean balancing the entire universe. I want to make that clear. But what we can infer from what George is saying is that balancing the whole universe or the whole world isn't the concern of a single individual or a council or a republic, because it's next to impossible. That requires a level of control over everything and everyone to the point where everything's perfect.
And together, you and I can rule the galaxy. Make things the way we want them to be.
So if bringing balance to the universe isn't possible, the next best thing we can do is bring balance to ourselves. If everyone were to focus internally and work on the balance between selfishness and selflessness and bring balance to their Force, that's the closest thing we could get to bringing balance to the entire universe. In the end, bringing balance to the Force isn't a question of Star Wars lore, but a question that everyone must undertake throughout life. This, in the end, could be seen as George Lucas's final lesson to us. We're just, focused too much on the stars and the wars to realize it. And I feel kind of bad about that.
Pleasure is purely self-centered. It's all about your pleasure. It's about you. It's a selfish, self-centered emotion that's created by a self-centered motive of greed. Joy is compassion. Joy is giving yourself to somebody else or something else. And it's a kind of thing that is, in its subtlety and lowness, much more powerful than pleasure. If you get hung up on pleasure, you're doomed. If you pursue joy, you will find everlasting happiness. So with that, I'm gone. Bye-bye, thank you.
So let me know if you're interested in seeing more Clone Wars content, in particular, looking at character journeys and arcs and seeing what lessons they have to teach us, or really anything. I just want to talk about Star Wars, the Clone Wars, or Star Wars. I was just in the mood for it. Until then, I hope to see you next time. Is that a double salute? I have no fucking idea. I hope to see you next time on Cuenin's Cove. Penis out. Penis out.